I'm the breadwinner, Bianca, and I always have been. So there was always that reality of no matter what I didn't know, I still had to make money. One thing that I've had for my whole life that will never leave me is a great belief in the value of integrity. That to me has been a guiding star and has never let me down. I think I always knew I was probably quite unemployable. Bless the managers who had to put up with me when I was in my 20s. But I actually found my destiny through being fired. I built this really successful niche business called The Career Company for the design and brand innovation consultancy market. I had the most incredible ride for 7 years, but then realised I didn't love it. I had a moment, I just had our first baby, my husband had come into work in the business with me, and I had this epiphany. I was holding him and I thought, I just don't want this anymore. I'm stuck in success. I'm not a coach, I'm far too directive. I'll always be a former headhunter. And it was that eureka moment when I stopped trying to tuck my former career equally under the carpet, going, well, darling, I never wanted to be a headhunter. Oh my God, that experience is so precious and rich and unique.
Ambition is not a dirty word. Impact is not synonymous with struggle. In fact, massive impact is absolutely possible with joy, fun and sublime integrity. I'm Bianca Best, author and founder of The Burnout Business, and this is the Big Impact Show, where success meets grace. I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by the magnificent Sally Henderson. Sally, thank you so much for joining us here on the Big Impact Show today.
Oh, pleasure. I couldn't be happier to be here.
Now, Sally is a Yorkshire lass, no less, and a successful entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur who has run 4 businesses, including a very successful headhunting business. But you decided to devote yourself to leadership, to having impact and doing it in your very unique way. Your business is called the Real Method. This is what you take into organizations. And today I want to hear all about your journey, how you do it, how you make success your magical way. And I also want to hear about your journey recently getting onto a TedX stage, and huge congratulations for that.
Thank you. No, I can't wait to share it with you.
So let's start with your story. Who is Sally?
Gosh, well, I'd say Sally is always at heart, as you said, a Yorkshire lass. I think growing up in the north, to be stereotypical, just gave me, and in nature, it just gave me a great foundation around just speaking the truth. And you know, one thing that I've had for my whole life that will never leave me is a great belief in the value of integrity. I think that to me has been a guiding star and has never let me down. But I was always, I think, a bit of a misfit, to be honest. I never did have that kind of sense of, oh, this is my tribe or that's my path. And yeah, I went traveling around the world in 1998 on my own.
Wow, that's brave.
Never having travelled before, landed in Delhi at 3:30 in the morning with my trusty rough guide. Back then you were either Lonely Planet or Rough Guide. Yeah. And that's, I think, just set the tone for my adulthood, really. It's just going out there, having adventure, throwing myself into situations which in hindsight you look back and go, how on earth did I do that? Wanting to experience different cultures, different people, get to know myself better. And I think I always knew I was probably quite unemployable. Bless the managers who had to put up with me when I was in my 20s, you know, as only a 20-year-old can be. But I actually found my destiny through being fired, believe it or not.
That's really interesting. Tell us more.
Yeah, so I sabotaged myself in my early 30s? I can't remember now. Proud 51 this year. But yeah, long time ago, I've been doing a recruitment job for about 5 years, and I was just stuck, Bianca. I was just stuck in success, ironically. I'd built a great brand for myself in someone else's business, but I became frozen with indecision, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I just told everyone how unhappy I was.
And how old were you at this point?
28, 30, something like that. And I just told everyone and their wife how I was going to go set up my own agency, which, do you know what, I had no intention of doing. And somewhere in my brain, I knew I was sabotaging because I wasn't brave enough to make change for myself. The irony that I live in change. And so they did. They fired me because they'd heard I was going to become a threat. But ironically, and here's the sliding doors moment. The day they fired me, I was going to go and ask to go part-time to study coaching. Yeah, literally the day I was like, right, that's it. I need to own this. I'm not happy. I don't want to go and work for any other competitor. I genuinely don't want to set up my own thing. Um, but it showed me the power of, well, the power of not having your power. You know, giving your power to someone else to make a decision on your behalf. But also showed me, gosh, if only we'd had a proper conversation.
That's so interesting. And had you not felt that you could actually get to the point of having a proper conversation, perhaps because you were younger?
I think younger, I don't think there was a great culture of psychological safety. But I also truly do believe it wasn't meant to be. Because if I had have had that, if I hadn't have been fired and my world suddenly spin, and let's bear in mind, this was back in the day when that wasn't cool, you know? It wasn't about squiggly careers and change. It was much more linear and predictable. And when I was a headhunter, I had to actually explain if people would have less than 3 years on their CV, why they weren't a flight risk. Go figure. Yeah, back then. Anyway, it wouldn't have forced me out into the world, although I probably wouldn't do it again if I had a choice because it was quite bruising and traumatic. But it kind of got me to scratch the itch of going to work for a management consultancy. You know, I was very ego led back then. I got my 2-1 in international business, not to become a recruiter. God damn it. It's true. But fast forward, I actually then couldn't find anyone to work for, didn't quite know what I wanted. So I thought, sod it, I will go back to setting up a recruitment company. And there lieth the language, because I don't believe you can go back. And then I built this really successful niche business called The Career Company for the design and brand innovation consultancy market. And I had the most incredible ride for 7 years, but then realized I didn't love it because I'd never truly wanted to build a recruitment agency. I did it as a reaction to not being able to find what I wanted at the time. And because I'd given my power away before, and it had been quite so devastating and horrible as a result, when it all kicked off, I had a moment. I just had our first baby. My husband had come into work in the business with me. We just had our first baby, who's now 16 and 6'4", would you believe? And I had this epiphany. I was holding him and I thought, I just don't want this anymore. I'm stuck in success. And again, that similar pattern. And I thought, the only thing I can do is own this. So it was entirely my decision and my husband's. And we just said, this business has gone as far as I want to take it after 7 years. I'm going to shut it.
And what size was the business at this point?
It was 7 people, so again, we were always niche, but we had loads of profit in the bank. We'd ridden 2 recessions. Actually, 7 months, after I'd shut the business, I was in a rented office, and bless the people who took over my lease went, "Can you please stop people from calling this number?"
Because the business just was almost self-sustaining.
It was. We had the best talent, the best briefs. We were trusted, respected. We made a great difference. But I just knew I'd reached the end of the road because I knew the bit I loved was what I have now dedicated myself to, which was the advising, the leadership, the coaching, the mentoring, looking at, okay, so recruitment's a great platform. And don't get me wrong, there's lots of bad, but if you're a great recruiter, you really are quite special because you have to do so many multi-skills in one go, without any time or permission of it often, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you were stepping back into integrity then of following what your heartfelt passion was.
Yeah, and again, being very honest, so here's some real blunt honesty. If I could have turned that plane around on the way to Delhi at one point, I would have done. Because the terror of what I was taking on really hit me. Because remember, no phone. I had to fax my dad from Paraganj in Delhi, stepping over sleeping. Yes, fax him at 3 a.m, stepping over sleeping bodies in the room to say I've arrived. Yeah, and if I had known quite how hard it was going to be and how much it would really search my soul to have got to where I am now, having closed the career company, making me and my husband redundant, taking care of the team as much as we could, with a baby who didn't sleep, it was quite a lot.
I mean, that you've just described 2 very sort of big momentous moments. Well, in fact, 3 there of big decisions: to go travelling on your own, to go part-time, stroke be fired, change direction, and to then close a company down when you've got 2 dependents then. You had a husband and a baby. So this courage and this bravery, where did that stem from?
I think my father, actually. He's always sort of taught me to just go for it. Don't have fear. Believe in yourself. And I just think, I think I've just always seen the world quite black and white, actually. And if you want something, and I don't come from a privileged background at all, in fact, quite the opposite in certain situations. And so I learned when I went to travel, my parents were divorcing, we were selling the house, very modest house, and I didn't have a home to come back to. So I packed all my belongings. I think they fitted into a washing machine box, pretty much. And I went off traveling knowing that I didn't know where I would come back to as a home. And as I said, there was no money really at all. And it for my family as well, it was a very, very, very difficult time. So they're going away at that age. So I'd done my university, I'd worked to help save some more money, but going away not having a home base to come back to was, liberating and terrifying at the same time. So I think that sense of survival, and I knew if I ran out of money, there was no mummy or daddy's credit card coming to bail me out. The only people I met actually on my first part of the trip were Trustafarians, which I was like, what's that? I was like, hang on, where are the normal people doing this?
So you've always actually, in moments of adversity or change, you've moved forward. That sounds like that's very much a pattern of constantly moving forwards and never going backwards and not being destabilised by the inability to go back. You're happy and comfortable moving forwards.
Oh, I'd love to say I was happy and comfortable, Bianca. I would love. No, I think it's just if you don't do it, no one else will do it for you. So I think that kind of, and again, not from a lack of love or care or compassion, just reality. And I think I've always been, as I said, I never quite fitted in. I've always been very headstrong and kind of clear that, okay, I am me. Me doesn't always fit other norms. I'm outspoken, I'm direct. I say what I think. Integrity, as I said, is an absolute muscle that never stops. And not everyone likes that.
That's so interesting and empowering, because there's so much conversation today around teaching younger men and women to just live by the affirmation of I am enough. And it sounds like you were able to channel this from a young age through connecting in with your own integrity.
Yeah, I think that word is really relevant to our conversation today, because when I did recruitment, I just used to say, well, I just do the right thing relentlessly. It's not rocket science. So if someone wanted to go forward for a job that I knew wasn't right for them, even though I knew I could have got a fee out of it, I wouldn't do it. And they would say to me, well, I'll go to your competitor. And I would say, well, feel free to, but I won't represent you because it's not the right thing.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because it's about you won't compromise what you know is right.
No, because it never serves you in the long run. And then the work I do now as a high stakes leadership mentor. So the business I have now is going to be 10 in October, which is quite exciting.
Congratulations. Wow. So let's go back then. So you started the first business, you ran that recruitment business with your husband, and then you decided, no, this is not for us. You took the brave decision to make yourselves redundant, close the company, even though there was still active demand.
Oh God, relentless demand. I could be doing it now if I wanted,
That's so wonderful, isn't it? So affirming. So then what was the next step in your entrepreneurial journey?
A lot of uncertainty and tears, if I'm really honest, in terms of, oh my God, I just don't know. And do you know what's so amazing is the horrifically strangling power of fear and self-doubt. So I remember I went into a partnership for a while. For lots of reasons that didn't work out. I had a very much dedicated pure headhunting business, which I did enjoy, but realised that wasn't my gig, So, but when someone said to me, first of all, oh, well, you should look at leadership, my first reaction was, what do I know about leadership? I'm a headhunter, little me, I don't come from a management consultancy, or I haven't gone to Harvard, or I've not done INSEAD, or a college, Henley College, or any of that stuff. So that really bizarre reaction I had, given actually I knew so much about it, just not from a classic definition.
That's so interesting. I was working with a client yesterday who I coach, and she doesn't position herself as a leader. And she is a leader. She's absolutely rocking her career, and she wants to run a business, and she's in this big transition moment, and she's a mum. And I look at this woman and I'm like, you are leading a business division. You're leading the intentionality of what you're going to do out of work. You're leading your family. And she said, well, I'm not a leader. So it's really interesting that you're echoing that back now. And what I discussed with this client yesterday is that there's this definition of leadership that we've sort of associated with the brusque CEO who's running a big enterprise, and we feel disconnected from that. But as I hope you're about to tell us, there's a very different perspective on leadership that each and every one of us can own to whatever capacity that feels true to us.
Yeah, and I think it's a lesson in the power of your own voice in your own head, unchecked. You know, because I'm sure if you'd asked other people at the time, they'd have gone, oh my God, she knows so much about leadership. She built my leadership career. She built my leadership team. You know, it's just that I hadn't self-identified with that moniker because I hadn't gone and got the stamp, or I hadn't done the course or got the first or the 2-1. 100%. Although I actually don't like the word imposter syndrome or the phrase, I replaced it with fantasy fear. Because I just think imposter syndrome, when it was created, had a really healthy intention, but it's become an industry and it's become this almost strange badge of honor. And I just feel it sounds, in this current world, which is demanding, very bloody heavy. And so I've done webinars on this. I've got tools around how to unpick this. But I say, like, hang on, rather than say imposter syndrome, why don't you frame it as fantasy fear? Because that's what it is. It's a fantasy fear.
So powerful.
Isn't it? And doesn't it lift you straight away and make it much more manageable and playful, so that you can acknowledge it, because it still has a value to acknowledge it, but you're not like, ugh, underneath it, you know?
Love that. Love that. So transformative.
Yeah, well, that's my whole world, Bianca. It's all about how do you go from where you are to where you want to, your true greatness, if you like. So the real method, which is my program, I label myself very happily as a high stakes leadership mentor. That's the business I've been running for nearly 10 years now. Took a while to define. All roads have led, like all streams have come into this beautiful river of high stakes leadership mentoring, and all my life experience is at the benefit and service of my clients as much as I possibly can. But I had a moment in COVID, actually. So talk about change and impact and disruption. I think we've all, to our peril, slightly forgotten COVID or tucked it under the carpet. But it was such a pivotal moment on so many levels that we're still unpicking the outcome of.
Definitely. And our children certainly are.
Absolutely. And the definition of working and patterns and the whole thing. We shouldn't therefore just put it under the carpet. We should keep embracing it, but not keep it in a stale sense, but keep it evolving and moving forward. The experience, what we were taught. But because of COVID, I kind of had I don't know, can I swear on this? Is that?
Yes, you can. That's fine.
I had a fuck it moment. I was just like, fuck it. Like, let's throw all the stuff up in the air and really be really brave. And I just thought, right, I just lost some of my insecurities and fears that I was still holding, and just got really in flow with what I wanted to share. And because I think the whole world had blown up, it was like, well, fuck it, because no one knows what they're doing. So give it a go. And that helped me to step back, and I thought, what am I? What language? I had some great help as well along the way. I'm all about being a team player, and you can't get there on your own 100%. I had great help going, right, I'm not a coach. I'm far too directive. I'll always be a former headhunter. And it was that eureka moment when I stopped trying to tuck my former career equally under the carpet, going, well, darling, I never wanted to be a headhunter, to going, oh my God, that experience is so precious and rich and unique. And what are the patterns and needs and obstacles and opportunities that I used to manage and support my clients with all the time, that I can put into a program, create a toolkit that I can teach and advise and mentor and coach and consult around, that just will help as many people as possible, but especially those C-suite senior execs and teams, which became the real method.
Fantastic. And that's so interesting, because you integrating that early chapter of your career all aligns with integrity. What is integrity? It's that oneness, it's that wholeness of self. And so you bringing in all of that rich experience into how you can serve others is so powerful. And I bet you're going to tell me you're having loads of fun doing that as well.
Oh my God, I love my job. I truly do. And people say, whenever I talk about it, it's so real. But I called it the real method because, again, back to that Yorkshire comment we made at the beginning, let's just work with what actually matters. So REAL, REAL, stands for role, emotion, acceleration, and leadership. They, to me, are the 4 pillars for high performance, especially when the stakes are high, because everybody assumes, especially when you're a C-suite successful leader, and I work with the best and make them better, that's my gig, they all assume that you know what your job is, you're clear on your emotional beliefs, your shadows, your lights, and all the rest of it. You're completely balanced as a human. You're very clear on your motivations and where you get your fuel from. And you're very clear not just on what your leadership style is today, but what it has to be in the future to help you accelerate and land amazing outcomes under intense, relentless pressure.
So that's where you're taking your clients and the teams that you work with, you're getting them to that place of really solid, empowered, sustainable leadership.
Yeah, the foundation pillars, which because by your very nature of being a high performer, you're never asked the basic fundamental questions, stripping right back to what's real around. So here's an interesting thing. Well, I think it's interesting. You can tell me if you agree. Whenever I'm working with a client, and they're often CEOs, global CEOs, big C-suite, whatever titles, of big named agencies or brands, it's just so much. It's so interesting to support in that space. And I'll say this to them early on in our conversation. I'll say, "Oh, can I just ask you a question?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course you can." And I'll go, "What's your job?" And they'll be like, because it's such a basic question, hey. And they'll look shocked and they'll be like, "What do you mean, Sally? I am, they're not," and they're all good people. I don't work with, I won't use more slang language, but I work with good people. And they'll be like, "What do you mean? It's obvious I am big title of big brand." And I'm like, "No, I know that, but just tell me in your own words, what's your job?" And here's what normally happens, which is fascinating. They'll either look up to construct on the spot, thinking, "God, what is my job?" Or they'll look down to remember, "What did I sign? What does it say in the box?" But they don't know. And even more interestingly, when they're telling me in the safe space of a one-on-one connection, especially when it's online, they don't realise that this happens equally. Their body drops, their body language drops, they break connection with me because they're either creating or remembering, and they're feeling uncomfortable because they don't know truly, and then their voice drops and they sound bored.
If they're in a role where they're not properly emotionally connected to their own.
Even if they are, Bianca, even if they are, because the foundation of clarity around what is the job you're here to do and how do you articulate it in a way that is powerful, human, real, but also motivating. So part of the real method, the role pillar, is underpinned by a tool called the 5 R's. So all of my work has tools underneath it, emotionally or practically there to support. And the 5 R's, one of the first questions is role. What's your why? So that one statement that you say, which is human, real language, but whenever you say it, it lifts your soul. And you could say it in the park, in the pub, in the boardroom, on a stage, and it works. That's the clarity of thinking that people just don't have because nobody stops to check it's there.
Yeah. I agree with you. I agree. I think you've got to make sure that the work that you're doing is connected in with your soulful self, and that's got to be your core driver, and to feel excited about what you're doing. So you're clearly extremely transformative with the teams that you work with. What's the journey been like of establishing yourself credible in this space and starting to build? I mean, I know you are incredibly respected in our industry from societies you're part of. You have a phenomenal reputation. How hard or easy or undulating was it building and establishing yourself with this sterling reputation that you have?
Oh, thank you for asking that question because you know what? It was fucking hard.
That's why I'm interested in the listeners will be. It's not easy doing this.
I really naively thought, because I'd got to a really high place in a small bubble around design, brand and innovation. And I was the go-to headhunter, especially if you wanted a slightly interesting, different talent or job. And the phone just used to ring. So I very naively thought, well, I'll just take that level of seniority and experience and plop it over here. Because everyone tells me all the time, "Oh, you're not like all the other recruiters. You're such a great coach," or you really give me such wisdom and advice. And I'm like, so I'll just transfer it. Not on your Nelly. Not on your bloody Nelly. I literally had to, and this is where the role of ego comes back in. I had to go back to ground zero. And this is in my mid 30s now, mid to late 30s. 35, 36. Well, you're meant to be in your prime, aren't you? And you're kind of going on that kind of reaching the classic heights. And I had to have a conversation with me and go, yeah, none of that counts right now. And because I was so well known as a headhunter in that tight pool and community, which I loved and still do, people wouldn't see me in a new identity. So I had to literally let all that go and start from nothing and go into markets where I had no reputation. I also wasn't wanting to be a coach. I knew that from the get-go. I'm like, I'm not a coach. I'm too directive. So here's what we'll do about it. Here's some advice. Here's some direction. Let's fast track it. All the bits from headhunting that I loved, But yeah, I had to literally go back and then also do the really boring but practical pains and gains. What's your avatar? All of that basic marketing, new business, very unglamorous, really crunchy, can be often soul destroying grunt work to get the foundations back up to build it again.
Which is a long, intense road of work and new clients, testimonials, case studies, and then just growing and growing.
Yeah. And I'm the breadwinner, Bianca, and I always have been. So the pressure in terms of I don't have the luxury of someone, my husband, he's he also retrained the same time as me to become a garden designer. So we both completely ripped up our careers, but he also went down a few cul-de-sacs, as I did, to work out what he wanted to do. But the responsibility financially for our family has always been my kind of gig. So there was always that reality of no matter what I didn't know, I still had to make money.
Yeah, and you had to keep going. So one of the biggest, incredibly impressive movements in the marketing space recently has been you getting on the TEDx stage. I'd love to hear briefly about that adventure, how you got it, what it was like, and the challenges of actually rehearsing for something as prestigious as making it onto a TEDx stage.
Do you know what? It's been a bucket list for years. I went on a course about it 3 years ago. I've got a vision board next to me for 2025, and in the top right hand corner is not any old TEDx, but TEDx Royal Tunbridge Wells. Because I wanted to do a TEDx in my hometown. I've lived here now about 12 years. And TEDx stopped running here 5 years ago. And I applied 5 years ago to speak at TEDx and I got rejected. And then when I did the TEDx course and I invested quite a lot in that, I then got busy and I was like, but then I was like, right, I really want to do that. And then TEDx came back to Tunbridge Wells. And because I'd invested around what does a TEDx talk need to have, I'd learned about TEDx, walked the walk of it, and then I applied everything I'd learned into it and applied again, and I was accepted this time.
Congratulations. What a moment. How did that feel the day you found out?
Oh, as high as a kite, just because it means a lot. I wanted that badge, but I believe a lot in what I wanted to say around purpose not being enough and what to do about it. Again, passionately care that this is a message that matters out there and it can help people and practically help people to do that. But I really underestimated just what it would take to get to the level of TEDx, the level I wanted to be at for TEDx, because I am a professional speaker. So people were like, why are you worried about this? Surely it's your day job. And I'm like, it's put those 4 letters in front of it and also the techniques that you have to use. And it's an experience I've never done. And I was sharing with you as we were chatting before going live about, I had some amazing help from Southpaw, JDO Global and Ginger May, amazing agencies all local in Tunbridge Wells. And poor JDO Global got the dud end of the stick because that was my dud rehearsal where I just got, and I did a LinkedIn post about this, a video, very honestly, just to say, oh my God, I just did a bad talk. And I've never actually done a bad talk really, but I really did. But you know what? Weirdly, somewhere in me, I needed to fail to get that out of my system. And I went straight downstairs because Ginger May and JDO are in the same building and I had to do it again. I was thinking, what have I put myself through? I've just spectacularly splatted in front of people. But that was the best thing I could have done because I picked myself up, I went to the loo, I had a chat with myself in the mirror. And I did this really interesting thing. I went, just stop trying to perfect it, start enjoying it and trust in you and go and have fun and go and just enjoy giving it your best, because the hours of practice I had put in by that point was off the scale. And that, again, just made the whole thing fly.
It's almost as though you just exorcised the fear.
I had to. I even had nightmares about it, honestly. Like, you couldn't make it up. But it went great on the day. It's a talk that I'm taking out there into the world. It will also form the first chapter of the book that I'm writing currently. So it's all, again, part of that, pushing myself forward and keeping going.
Wonderful. Well, I applaud you for getting onto that stage and for making a dream come true off your vision board. You've done it. So when's the show coming out? Where can we see it? And how can people follow you, get hold of you, work with you and share your knowledge and impact in the world?
Oh, thank you. So it takes a while for the TEDx stuff to go through TED. to have all the ticks and checks and balances. So I think it could even be up to another 8 weeks from now before I actually get the copy. But rest assured, I will be all over LinkedIn, my newsletter. So if you want to find out more about me, my website is sallyhenderson.co.uk. I have a newsletter called Mentor in Your Pocket. Every month I send out just practical advice around what can help you master how you lead, especially when the stakes are high. So please sign up for that. And my LinkedIn, Sally K. Henderson. I'm very active on LinkedIn too.
Perfect. Well, it has been absolutely wonderful chatting to you over the past half hour. Thank you so much for really epitomising how it's possible to have success with integrity and grace. And I love the purple lipstick, love the look, and love the impact in the world. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, it's a joy. I can't tell you. Thank you. It's a privilege to come on as your guest. And well done for everything you're doing. It's amazing.
Bless you. Thank you.
So my big takeaway from that inspiring conversation with Sally is her unwavering persistence. In every echelon of her life, she has evidenced that courage and conviction that has just pushed her on. Even now, having just done her TedX and now writing her book, persistence pays off. So I hope that inspired you. What a woman, epitomizing success with grace in her unique and beautiful way. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and tune in for the next episode of the Big Impact Show, where I will be talking to another ambitious soul who is showing us how they are doing success with grace their way.